Now we are going to discuss about inferior alveolar nerve block. So whenever we are telling inferior nerve block, it includes two nerves. One is inferior alveolar nerve and another one is the lingual nerve. Okay, so they are both close to each other. They are located in the same pterygomandibular space. So when you target inferior alveolar nerve, this lingual nerve also gets anesthetized. Okay. So inferior alveolar nerve means nerve block means both these nerve gets blocked. Okay, so before discussing about block, we will discuss certain basic things. Okay, so I am drawing the mandible. So this is the condyle. Medial side of the condyle, the nerve comes, the inferior alveolar nerve, mandibular submandibular nerve comes. Inferior alveolar nerve is a branch of mandibular nerve, and the medial aspect of the mandible, it enters through the foramen. Okay, so this is a inferior alveolar nerve foramen. After that it enters the bone. After that it enters the bone and it exits through the mental foramen. Okay, so this is called mental nerve. Okay, from this inferior alveolar foramen to this mental foramen, this nerve is inside the bone. Okay, so the bone is protected by a thick buccal and lingual cortex. Okay, so you cannot anesthetize the nerve here by infiltration. So that is why you have to target this section of the nerve. So this is targeting this section is called block. If you try to anesthetize here, okay, this is called infiltration, but infiltration won't work in the mandible because of the thick buccal and lingual cortex. So we are targeting the nerve here where it is open, it is not inside the bone. Okay, so this space is called pterygomandibular space, that is the medial side of the ramus. Okay, just above the inferior alveolar nerve foramen. Okay, so the problem is it is deep within the tissue. If it is a mental foramen, it will be superficial. If it is infraorbital nerve, it will be superficial, but here it is quite deep. So that is why we are having a difficulty in achieving inferior nerve block. Okay, so one more thing. So what are all the areas supplied by the inferior alveolar nerve, we will discuss. So inferior nerve supplies, first one is bone. Okay, the bone here, the bone of mandible, the body of the mandible. Okay, and the second thing is it supplies the nerve or pulp. It supplies the pulp of all mandibular teeth. Okay, and when it comes out through the mental foramen here, it is called mental nerve. The mental nerve supplies three areas. One is the labial gingiva from 4-5 to 3-5, and the labial gingiva also, and the second area is the lip, off of the lip, and third area is the chin. So when you block inferior alveolar nerve here, that means you are blocking mental nerve also. That means the lip, chin and the gingival area, everything is getting numb. That is why after inferior nerve block you are asking the patient whether the lip is numb. Okay, so alongside with the inferior nerve, close to it, there is a lingual nerve which is not going inside the mandible, stays upward, it crosses the 8 region and goes and supplies the tongue, one half of the tongue. So when you try to anesthetize the inferior nerve block, inferior alveolar nerve, the lingual nerve also gets blocked. So that is why you are asking the patient whether the tongue is anesthetized. Okay, so this is the basics of the nerve thing. Now we will discuss about how to block it. Okay, so before discussing the technique, we will discuss the location of the inferior alveolar foramen. Okay, so this is, imagine this is 8, this is 7. Okay, so the inferior alveolar foramen is about 6 to 10 mm, roughly average approximately 6 to 10 mm 6 mm to 10 mm above the occlusion plane height wise. Okay, the location of the inferior foramen. Okay, so mesiodistally, what is the location? About 2/3 from this width of the ramus. Okay, somewhere here. So there are two things we have to consider. One is what is the height of the foramen. The second one is depth of the foramen. Depth means from here to from the anterior border of the ramus to here. So the height is, as I told, it is about 6 to 10 mm above the mandibular occlusion plane. The depth wise is from the anterior border of ramus, it is about 2/3 of the width of the ramus. Okay, so if the ramus width is very wide, it will be located here 2/3. If the ramus width is very small mandible, it will be about 2/3. Okay, so the depth of the mental foramen from the anterior border of the ramus differs for each and every patient. For a patient with big ramus, thick ramus, it will be different. So for a patient with a small mandible, small face, it will be more superficial, whereas a big face, the foramen will be deeper. So this difference we should know. Okay, so there are two main things. One is height, the second one is the depth. So our target is to deposit the solution here above the foramen. Okay, so what is the target area? Okay, so our target area is, so this is the ramus, so this is the foramen, the nerve goes here above the inferior nerve foramen. This area is our target. Okay, if you deposit the solution below the foramen, okay, the block won't work because the nerve will be inside the bone. Only above the foramen the nerve is outside the bone, so it will work. So our aim is, our target area is this location above the inferior foramen, that means before the nerve enters the bony tunnel. Okay, so how to reach this area, how to deposit the solution in this area? So that is called the technique. So theoretically I will explain about the technique now. Okay, so there are some basic steps we have to do. So first thing is, ask the patient to open wide. Only if the patient is opening the mandible wide, we can target this area properly. If the patient is partially opened or not fully opening, then failures will happen. So this is the first thing, we have to make sure the patient, ask the patient to open wide, then only the block will work properly. The second thing is, the occlusal plane of mandible should be parallel to the floor. Okay, should be parallel to the floor. In case if the occlusal plane is not parallel, then our injection angle is not correct and we tend to inject below the foramen. So parallel to the floor. Most commonly this point is missed when the patient, we are doing the sitting dentistry. So that is why if you are in the initial stages of learning inferior alveolar nerve, it is better to do the inferior alveolar nerve block in a standing position. Okay, so that making the occlusal plane parallel to the floor is quite easy. Once you do sitting dentistry, it is difficult to achieve this point, so we may do many mistakes. If you are experienced, this is not a different, but if you are in the initial stage, it is better to do give the anesthesia in the standing position. So the third point is area of insertion, where you are going to insert the needle. Okay, so there are two landmarks or 2 points. Okay, so the first one is the occlusion plane. So the area of injection should be 6 to 10 mm above the occlusal plane, maybe 8 or 7 or whatever it is, occlusion plane. Okay, theoretically how it is determined is, you might have read in textbook, you have to keep your finger in this notch and this middle point of our finger should be the point of entry. Okay, but some doctors may have a small finger, some people will have a big finger, and you may have error in this. But the general rule is you don't have to follow this finger rule at all. If you follow this criteria, about 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane, if you are making any error, make sure you are doing error in the upper side. The more superior you are going above the occlusion plane, the more success. The more down you are going from the occlusion plane, the failure rate is more. So if you want to make some mistake, go more higher. Okay, go more higher above the occlusion plane. So the tentative approximate length height is about 10 mm, 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane. Okay, in case I am telling, if you give inferior block above 6 mm, and if the block is not efficient, you try giving block above 10 mm at the level of 10 mm or 12 mm height. Increase the height. So whenever you are facing problems in inferior block, you just increase the height of injection. So the area of insertion is one criteria is height. The second criteria is anterior posteriorly, how to determine that. So there is something called pterygomandibular raphe, which runs from the upper 8 region to the lower 8 region. There is a small raphe here. It is very easy to see. It is difficult to miss. Just anterior to the raphe. Just anterior to the raphe is the second point. So the first point is 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane. The second point is anterior to the raphe. Okay. So the fourth thing is what length of needle we use, short or long. Okay, anything is okay. If you use short, the entire needle will be inside the tissue. If you are using long, about 2/3 of the needle will be should be inside the tissue. Then only you can reach this inferior foramen. Okay. So area of insertion is, there are two landmarks, and the next point is angle of insertion. Okay. So if you are injecting for the right side, so this is the right side, so this is the foramen. Okay, so our target area is, this is the foramen, so our target area must be here. Okay, that means this is the occlusion plane, so about 6 to 8 mm occlusion plane, it will be okay. Okay, so if we think this is the pterygomandibular raphe region, so we will start the injection. Okay, so our syringe, where should we keep our syringe? Same side or opposite side? It is, so the criteria is from the opposite premolars. So keep your syringe in the opposite premolars. So we are keeping our syringe, barrel of the syringe, from the opposite premolar, right? And make sure the syringe is parallel to the mandibular plane or the parallel to the floor. If it is like this, then you may deposit the solution below the foramen and we may have failure. So the first thing is from the opposite premolar, and the second thing is about 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane. The third point is just anterior to the pterygomandibular raphe, just you can inject. Okay, so before going into the technique, we will discuss one more thing. So there is a foramen here. Just before the foramen, there is a elevated ridge. Okay, so this is a kind of speed breaker. This we have to avoid. So how to avoid? Sometimes this ridge may be very less, this ridge may be very prominent. Okay, so how to face these issues? So from the opposite premolar, you start injecting, you start entering the into the tissue. So if once you reach, so the fifth point is depth of insertion. Okay, so as I already told, for long needle it should be around 2/3, and if it is a short needle, the entire needle will go inside. Okay, when you use long needle and if you have entered about 2/3 of the needle, then you can inject. At this moment you might have felt the bony contact. Even if you have not felt any bone contact, that is not an issue. You can aspirate and you can deposit the solution. So the difficulty arises when you are hitting the bone before enough depth, before you reach the enough depth. Okay. So prematurely hitting the bone, prematurely hitting the bone or touching the bone. If the needle touches the bone prematurely before it achieves the 2/3 of the depth, so what to do? Okay, so this is the main thing. So this is one possibility. Okay, so the first possibility is you are entering 2/3 and you are hitting bone, then you are injecting. This is one possibility. The second possibility is prematurely it is touching the bone surface. At the time what you have to do is you have to move the syringe to the same side, go deeper and deposit. Okay. So if it is prematurely hitting or touching the bone, move the, that means you are hitting this ridge which is in front of the inferior foramen. So when you come to the same side, you are just bypassing the ridge, then you can enter easily. From the contralateral you may be having difficulty in entering, but once you come to the same side and then enter with the needle, it is easy to enter. So move the syringe towards the same side and go deeper and deposit. Okay, so this is one possibility. The third possibility is the entire needle is gone inside the tissue but no bone touching. That means you are entering the distal border of the ramus, that means in the parotid. Okay, so too much insertion, too much needle insertion with no bony contact. That means you are entering like this. So in that moment you have to withdraw and move towards the opposite side, then go. Okay, so these two scenarios you have to do the opposite thing. Okay, if the needle is touching the bone prematurely, you have to move towards the same side so that you can avoid the ridge and you can go deeper and deposit. If too much of needle insertion happens with no bony contact, then you have to withdraw the syringe first, withdraw the needle partially, because the needle tip may be lying in the parotid space, and move the syringe towards the opposite side and insert and deposit the solution. Okay, so the theoretical technique is you have to palpate this coronoid notch, this deepest notch with your finger, and your depth of insertion should be the middle finger. But you don't have to follow these things. Just remember this rule: above the occlusion plane, about 6 to 10 mm, anywhere you can start and you can go deeper. Just you have to follow these two possibilities. The most commonly it will happen, the needle will hit the bone prematurely. So at the time you have to move towards the same side, go deeper, then deposit. Okay, if too much needle insertion happens, then move towards the opposite side, first withdraw, then move towards the opposite side, then deposit. So I will summarize the technique once again. So the first thing is ask the patient to open the mouth wide, so open wide. The second thing is ask the patient to move the patient face towards your side or away from your side, depending upon which side you are giving. If you are giving a right side block, ask the patient to move towards right side. If you are giving left side, ask the patient to move towards the left side. So turn the patient face for more visibility and convenience. Okay, so this is one important point which I forgot to tell. So first is ask the patient to open wide. Next, ask the patient to turn to a more favorable position. Okay, that depends on whether you are giving right side or left side block. If you are giving right side block, ask the patient to turn to your side, or if you are giving left side block, the patient should face away from you. Okay, the third thing is area of insertion. So area of insertion, there are two things. One is height. Okay, so 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane, and another thing just anterior to pterygomandibular raphe. Okay, and start from the opposite premolars. Okay, the fourth thing is how much depth to go. 2/3 of long needle or full length of short needle. Some doctors are comfortable with short needle and some doctors are comfortable with long needle. The problem with the long needle is it may deflect, and since it is long, some doctors may feel little inconvenient to insert it. The short needle is very easy to handle because it doesn't bend, but the pain from injection is more with short needle because it will be thick. Okay, so when you are inserting, what are the things to do? So if it is hitting the bone prematurely or if too much insertion happens, okay, then always aspirate before giving injection. So this is one important point that we will discuss in detail. Okay, so aspiration is nothing but before you inject the solution, you have to pull the plugger little backwards. Okay, if blood comes in this syringe, okay, so this is called positive aspiration. If no blood comes, it is called negative aspiration. If negative aspiration comes, it is good, then inject the solution. If positive aspiration comes, then you should know whether it is from a artery or from vein. If it is from the artery, the entire solution will become bright red immediately. If it is from the vein, only blood will come only till here, only or this part. You may barely notice it. Okay, so what to do if the blood comes from artery? That means the entire solution becomes bright red. It is better to remove the entire syringe, throw this and get a new syringe and start the procedure. If you inject the same solution, because it contains blood, the patient may have trismus or pain and muscle issues. So if the positive aspiration is from the vein, that means there is only little blood here, then what you can do is you can change the location a little bit, then again aspirate, then again you can inject, then you can use the same syringe in that situations. So this is the details about aspiration. In case if you didn't aspirate and if you mistakenly given the solution, and if the needle tip is in an artery, then what will happen? Okay, so if the needle tip is in the artery and if you have given the solution, what will happen? There are two things will happen. One, you won't get any numbness, so the technique won't work. The patient will tell he doesn't have any lip or tongue numbness. And the second thing is the patient will have symptoms of systemic toxicity of lignocaine, tachycardia, sweating. These things will happen. Okay, so the patient pulse will go up. So this must be the reason, injecting the entire solution into the artery. So aspiration is very important don't forget to do this, especially inferior nerve block. How to give a painless inferior nerve block, because most of the time it is a painful injection. So there are various ways to reduce the pain during inferior nerve block. One technique is you can use STA, or called wand injection, computerized anesthetic technique, or there are much more economical and simple techniques are there. Okay, I am going to discuss one technique. So this is a insulin syringe which is used to give insulin. Okay, so this needle is very thin and inserting this needle into the oral tissue is very much comfortable to the patient. There is no pain at all. What you can do is you can deposit local anesthesia with this syringe locally here, just anterior to the pterygomandibular raphe, around 6 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane. Deposit a few drops, then wait for a few seconds. After that you use your regular syringe, then the inferior nerve block will be entirely painless. So the first technique is using the insulin syringe. Of course you are not taking insulin, you are taking local anesthesia and locally depositing few drops or even 0.5 ml, locally depositing in the area of injection, and wait for 20 or 30 seconds, that is enough. And the second thing is, when you are injecting with this 2 ml or 2.5 ml syringe, inject slowly. Many times what happens, the doctor injects very fast. Okay, this gives severe pain, so inject as much as slow as possible. Okay, so if you follow these two things, then you can absolutely avoid pain during inferior nerve block. Now we are going to give left inferior nerve block for this patient. Okay, so as I already told in the theory section, the first thing we have to make sure is ask the patient to open wide as much as possible. The second thing is make sure the lower occlusion plane is parallel to your floor. Okay, approximately. Okay, so before applying topical anesthetic, we will discuss about the landmarks. Okay, so the occlusal plane is the landmark, and if you palpate with your thumb the anterior border of the ramus, this is the coronoid notch. Even if you are not palpating, you can give the block. So without palpating also you can give the block. So for that we need two landmarks, one is the occlusion plane and another one is the pterygomandibular raphe. So this fold which runs from the maxilla to the lower right lingual region is the pterygomandibular raphe. Just anterior to it is our insertion point, and above the occlusion plane about 8 to 6 to 10 mm here. Okay, so our insertion point will be here, just anterior to the raphe and above the occlusion plane. To make the block comfortable, we are applying topical gel. If you are going to give long buccal also, apply topical anesthetic gel over the area. Okay, ask the patient to close the mouth. So always wait for 60 seconds for the topical anesthetic gel to work. Okay, then what I am now going to give is, so this is the entry point. Okay, anterior to the pterygomandibular raphe, above the occlusion plane. I am using an insulin syringe, but not with insulin, but with lignocaine local anesthetic solution. I am slowly injecting few drops, maybe 0.5 ml is enough. Okay, close. Since this needle is very much thin, it is more comfortable to the patient. We are just locally infiltrating the area where we are going to give the block now. Just wait for 20 seconds, that is enough. Or if you want to wait more, we can wait more. Okay, now we are using a regular 2 ml syringe. Make sure there is no air bubbles, If you are planning to use a cartridge, that is fine. If you are planning to use computerized anesthesia called STA, that is also fine. Now we are going to give the block. Okay, so keep the thumb here. As I already told, even if you are not palpating the carotid, that is fine. So this is the pterygomandibular raphe. This is approximately 8 to 10 mm above the occlusion plane, and here, okay, this is the premolars. So I am keeping the syringe barrel in the premolars, the lower premolars. The common mistake we are doing is to change the angle like this. So don't make sure you are not touching the premolars, just above the premolars and parallel to the occlusion plane. Just go straight. We are using a long needle. Now I am touching the bone. Okay, you are supposed to insert about 2/3 of the needle, but now I am hitting the bone prematurely. So what is the solution is, now come to the same side, withdraw and slightly withdraw 1 mm, then come to the same slide and go deeper. Don't go deeper. Now you can inject, or come to this side, or you can go deeper. Okay, now aspirate. This is the important part. Now you can inject. Okay, now you inject fully. Okay, there is one more technique, there is one more thing I will add now. So as we already discussed, the ramus thickness. Okay, turn to this side. So this is the posterior border of the ramus. Okay, this is the posterior border of the ramus. This is the anterior border of the ramus. Okay, posterior border of the ramus, this is the anterior border of the ramus. The inferior alveolar foramen is about 2/3 from this anterior border. Okay, if this is the anterior border, the foramen will be here, 2/3 from the anterior border. Okay, this is the width of the ramus. For the width of the ramus varies from patient to patient. Patient with big face will have a big ramus. Patient with small face, small jaw, they will have a short ramus. That is why the success rate is more in patients with small face, and the failure is more with big face with big skeletal structure. Okay, so before giving the block, if you want to improve the success rate, you can add one more thing along with the basic technique is open. Judge the width of the ramus. Judge the width of the ramus. So how to judge the width of the ramus? So we have to palpate the posterior border with this finger, with this middle finger, and palpate the anterior border with this thumb. I am discussing about the left side. For right side it will be different. For right side, open. For right side, what you have to do is, I will palpate like this, the thumb palpating the anterior border and the middle finger palpating the posterior border. So practically I am just holding the mandible with my fingers, holding the ramus now. Okay, so I am holding the ramus now. Now we will get an idea about how much width it is. If you start this for all patients, then you will understand how the width of the ramus varies from each and every patient. So based on the width, you can vary the depth. If the width of the ramus is less, your depth of the depth of insertion will be less. If the width is more, then the depth of insertion will be more. So mentally you have to visually imagine that our target area is about 2/3 from the anterior border of the ramus. Okay, so this is one more thing we can do. So start palpating and visualizing the width of the ramus for all patients. So after 30 or 40 patients, you will get a fair idea. Now after giving the inferior nerve block, commonly we give the long buccal nerve block, okay, or long buccal infiltration, whatever it is. So it is not needed to give in all situations. Okay, if you are planning for any root canal, there is no need for a long buccal nerve block. Only if you are planning for any extraction of 6, 7 or 8, or if you are doing some flap elevation in the 6, 7, 8 region, then long buccal is needed. Okay, so I will say one more time. So if you are planning for any end over root canal, only inferior nerve block is enough. There is no need for any long buccal. Okay, long buccal is needed when you are planning for any extraction or any gingival surgeries on the buccal side. So basically the long buccal nerve comes from here, okay, along the anterior border of the ramus, okay, and it enters the buccal sulcus here, and it supplies the buccal gingiva of 8, 7 and 6. Okay. For premolar and canines, the buccal gingiva is supplied by the mental nerve, but for the buccal gingiva of 6, 7, 8 is supplied by the long buccal nerve. So how to anesthetize this long buccal nerve is, so this is the buccal sulcus. Just give deposit the solution in the buccal sulcus, distal to 7 or distal to 8, wherever you want. Okay. So only one small improvement in the technique is, if you are planning for 8 removal, instead of giving one infiltration here, okay, so I am going to give infiltration here. Okay. So this is long buccal nerve block, distal and buccal to the last standing tooth, 8 or 7. If you are planning for 8 removal, give multiple infiltration, 3 or 4 side. So along with anesthesia, you will have bleeding control also when you elevate the flap to remove the impacted 8.